Testing. 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 Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, hopefully my voice is loud enough here. That's testing 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I'm going to let everybody know up front that I am definitely not a professional at this, so don't expect much. Just want to share what I enjoy with other people who enjoy the same thing, so it's not going to have high production values, or, you know, I'm not up used to speaking, you know, and in fact, if I get a bit quiet, you just need to let me know, because I forget to say something and forget that you guys are there and we're walking around. Anyway, took apart in the late of 2000 and sent off several parts for repair. Got them back. Got the vehicle back from Kipper, and got the motor back after having done working quite a bit. Having a put on it, had the flap company repaired, and just gonna walk through everything that I personally do. This may not be the way everybody does it. It may not be the correct way, but the way I go about putting this back together, and let's see how it goes. I'm not really fooling myself, so you guys feel free to speak up and let me know when I do. So let's start grabbing some parts and start putting this thing together. Motherboard. Vampire. Okay. That's out of the way. Now the case. And I've got the case right over here. Just grabbing the case. I'll be back in a moment. There we go. Nice, clean, well, semi-clean case. Empty. Hopefully that's not too loud with all that racket I'm making. Alright. So, we have the case. You see how that's lined up? It ain't lined up in the greatest, but we'll make do. You're not going to be able to see everything perfectly clearly, but we'll do our best. Alright. Okay. Let's take a look. Alright, we'll get the mic situation worked out. Hold on. I think I know what we have to do to fix the mic situation. Okay, that should be a little better. Oh, that's worse. Holy cow. Let's see if we can get this fixed. Don't want to be taking people's heads off. That should be better as far as the mic is concerned. Let's see here. Alright. These things will happen until I completely figure out everything. Alright. So let's get back on it. Hopefully I won't be too loud still. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, that should be good. Let's just make sure. Just make sure. All right, that should be better, I would think. There we go. That should be pretty good right about there. Right about there. Should be good. So we can avoid distortion. Alright, back on it. Like I warned, definitely not a professional operation, that's for sure. So, let's get this motherboard ready to go back in here. Being as prepared as I can be here. Not. Let's open this motherboard up. And if I'm lucky, nothing was damaged when it got shipped back from California. Is everybody hearing me all right now? I do have a lapel mic somewhere, but yeah. We didn't dig that out for this experiment. We're going raw on this one. Yep, definitely going. All right, so here we go. We got the excuse me. We got the floppy connector repaired. So no more bent pins, which is really great because I couldn't plug. Well, I could plug the floppy cable in, but yeah, it was not pleasant. So let's go ahead and you can see the new battery here. So let's go ahead and get this into the case carefully. Now, if I recall taking this apart, we should be able to just sit this down just like that. And hopefully my fat head doesn't get too much in the way. So, and I'm not saying this is going to be super exciting. I mean, we are just putting a computer together, so I can't make any promises as to the level of excitement. But we'll see what happens. Excitement is when things catch on fire and stuff burns to the ground. Which is does happen at times. Alright, so we're going to screw the motherboard down, I guess, and get started with that. There's screws like this. It's going to be difficult for you to see this camera. While it has good resolution, it doesn't really have the ability to focus very well. So, but what we'll do is start putting the screws back in, and then we'll move over to the rest of the connectors. And I've got to move that. I got to move that 68K out of here. So that's got to come out. And that will require the IC puller, which I believe is over across the room, but I can't be sure. Otherwise, we'll just get a little flathead screwdriver and wrench it. So we'll just get these screws started. And I generally like to just, you know, start all the screws pretty much and get them in place, and then come back and tighten them down. Kind of like you would the lug nuts on a car. Just kind of go around at, you know, different corners and tighten them down so that there's a good even pull down on you know, and I do that with whatever electronics I'm putting together, as I tend to try to do them evenly on opposite corners so that you're putting even pressure across the whole board. Let's see. All right, so I was just checking the chat room there. I decided not to use YouTube, the YouTube chat, and because the text is so small in there on my iPad that it would be a real pain to read. So I just put the IRC up there, and I hope nobody over the IRC channel minds about that. But I imagine they'll have no problem letting me know if they do. So I got a screw that goes up here. Come on. See, that's the type of thing that you want to avoid. We don't want to be dropping any screws down in areas they don't belong. But it always comes in handy to have a magnetic tip screwdriver for just such emergencies. Okay, we're going to give this a turn here so we can see all the various places where the screws need to go very clearly. And we'll turn it back around here in a minute. What I'll probably do is just fire it up with the 68K in it for now and see what and just make sure it boots before I go any further with pulling it out and put the Vampire in. So just take this one slow step at a time. Anyway, so I basically collect just vintage stuff. And you know, computers, game consoles, that sort of thing. But about 6 months ago, I had the brainstorm to start collecting Amiga stuff, because I had always been interested in it, but when it was back when its heyday, it was just too expensive for me. And I was a younger guy, you know, in my early 20s back then, and just couldn't afford it, you know, and so never bothered with it and didn't think about it much. And then when UAE came along, and I toyed with that for a while in the early 2000s, and I liked it. Still couldn't afford the hardware, really. And then as a collector, when I started collecting and I grew up a bit, I decided, hey, I'll go back and check it out and see what's up with the Amiga, and figured I'd find some really cheap deals on Amiga hardware, which was that was a joke unto itself. And then ran across the Vampire folks and the accelerators for Vampire, and well, the rest is history. You know, really, it's been 6 months of me either waiting for the Vampire. I've bought, in the last 6 months, I bought 2 A500s and three A2000s, and I sold off the 500s to buy a couple more 2000s because I like the form factor better. I love having space, you know, to work and get in here, and it doesn't feel tiny. You know, it feels like it feels like a computer. It doesn't feel like a toy, and I like that feeling, because I've always worked when I was younger. You know, I always worked on IBM stuff and, you know, Intel stuff and, you know, that sort of thing, x86 and that, and you know, those machines back in the day, you know, 100 pounds for a desktop computer was not uncommon, you know, and I just kind of was into that type of form factor, and I kind of stayed that way. So having the 2000s is really nice, because I enjoy feeling like I'm working on something, you know. And that's not to knock people who like the smaller, you know, the smaller form factors. It's not. I'm not saying that. Nothing wrong with the 500 and the 600 and 1200. It's just, you know, it just boils down to whatever you like. And I happen to like this. So, anyway, getting the screws back in here. And I may go from one extreme to the other. I may go from not talking enough to talking too damn much. We'll see. I got that one screw that sits right by the number 1 port. The joystick 1 port right in the front. Alright, so now I've got all the screws in the case. Actually, I'm going to go start randomly going around here and tightening things down, and then we'll get back to parts. Shouldn't be too difficult from this point forward, but we will get there quickly enough. Now, if it looks like I know what I'm doing, it's only because I've taken 3 of these apart and put them back together now twice each. So, yeah. Yeah, hopefully the mic is still good and everybody's able to hear me, and hopefully my fat head and my fat arms are not getting in the way too much. But I wasn't necessarily, you know, out to make an instructional video on how to do this. But I figured I'd just share the excitement that I feel right now putting this back together. After waiting for a month and a half, after sending away everything and taking it all apart and sending my Vampire back out to Canada and back, but I don't usually tighten these too tight. I mean, I tighten them up probably a quarter turn past, you know, when I start feeling resistance on the screw. You know, you don't want to put too much pressure on these things. It's old, so you just don't want to put a lot of pressure on them. These ones up front are pretty interesting because they have 5 screws across the front here, and you can tell that they were putting a real emphasis on being able to take the 8-bit, 16 bits, and Zorobus cards out with it, you know, because I'll tell you, these things are actually pretty tight. As far as all 3 of the ones that I have, the socket, the Zoro sockets, and the 16-bit and 8-bit sockets are pretty tight. So you have to put a good bit of pressure on them to pull them in and out, and it's good that you have the ability to have the screws to keep an even pressure on the board when you're yanking on the cards. So anyway, I think we got them all tightened up, which is good. I don't think I think I know I have more screws over here. Hold on. Hey, there's that one of the IC pullers right there. So we'll be able to. We're gonna need that. Probably not gonna need that. I know I got more motherboard screws in here. Those are case screws. Motherboard screws, where are you? There you go. No, that's one of the little front screws. There we go. That's a little short, longer one. We missed the screw up here on the back side, in the center here. Hopefully everything's in view. I take a look here and make sure that I'm within at least a reasonable range of being able to let you guys see what's going on. If I do this again, I'll try to do better in setting everything up. I kind of jumped the gun because I was excited to get this put together and get my Vampire out there and up and running. That might do me some good to actually take a look at the chat room and see if anybody's saying anything. Turn around. We'll be right back. Oh yeah. All right. So take a look at in the IRC channel here. I just wanted to make sure, you know, if anybody had a question or anything, they could ask it in there. I might not get right to it right away. It's easy to get distracted here. So, all right. So, motherboard's all screwed back in. We're going to take the connector here. Now, I did some research, and so, and next time I'm going to have a couple different camera angles to do this. But I did some research. The last time I put one of these together, and there's a way that these cables are actually done from the factory, and I actually wanted to duplicate that the way they do it at the factory. And I looked at a lot of pictures online and looked at how other people's were done, and there's a notch on the front side here where the cables for the power LED and the hard drive LED should go through. And it passes through this notch, and then it passes through this bracket on the far left side. There's a bracket here on the far left side. Like I said, next time I do something, I'll try to have a second camera so I can get in here and do closer pictures for you guys. If I do this again, if it's a flop, you know, I've only made myself look like a fool, and it's done and over with, and I can move on. But we'll see how this goes, and if, you know, if it works out, and people might want to see more, I don't know, might try it again. Usually try things 2 or 3 times just to make sure I don't like it. Now, I'll tell you one thing: I do have to remember the positive and negative on these, and I'm looking down here on the board. Always it has 3 pins on it, and the reason it has 3 pins is having 3 pins on the connector here and having 3 pins on the motherboard basically ensures that if no matter which way you turn the connector, you're not going to short out the LED and burn up your LED. But hopefully we'll get it right the first time. I think I remember how this went. It's been a little while, but we'll get down in here and see what we can do. Now I'm gonna fire it up without the floppy or anything connected here in a minute, and we'll get the power supply and whatnot out here and get it all connected and see what we can do. Get it to fire up. And got a monitor right over here that we'll use to test with. And I'll try to move the camera into a better position once I get the Vampire installed so we can see the monitor a little easier. Alright, so I'm going to grab the, that's one thing. We're going to go ahead, and I'm going to do things a little out of order from what I said. I'm going to put the floppy cable in now before I bring the caddy in, because I don't want to have to put any stress on the power connector to the motherboard to get to the floppy connector underneath. So we got I went outside to my stash and found some an Asus floppy cable. Now if you just, now I know about the whole, you know, having the twist in there, and I've had pretty good luck with just, if you use a cable with a twist in it, I just set the drive for the opposite of what I want it to be. So if I use a cable with a twist, I'll set it for a DF1 instead of DF0, and that has seemed to work. And that'll be kind of what I'm going with. So what we need to do here is get the floppy connector, and this is probably likely where my head's going to get in the way. So because that sucker is over there and it is small. Well, it's small to me. So we have a missing pin in our connector, and I believe that missing pin, hold on, let me grab the magnifying glass and have a look. So the missing pin faces this way. So this would be the correct orientation. Now this is what got me in the trouble last time. So I'm 99% sure that I got this motherboard with a bad floppy connector. 99. However, I tend to have a habit of connecting the pins without connecting to headers without looking at them directly, because I've just, over the years that I've worked on computers, it's just been easier for me to just reach in and do it by feel than by sight. And sometimes that could be hit or miss. So I may have very well bent this connector originally, but I cannot rightfully recall. Now I'm going to say something here, and we're going to have a look. Good news is I do have standard. Wait, you know what? Let's not even play around. I'm going to change things up midstream here. I've got a proper Amiga floppy cable. Let me just grab that right quick. I'll be off camera for a moment while I grab this. Oh, this is not the bin. This is the bin. And there's, in here somewhere, amongst the Amiga stuff, I would say that's it. So, all right. This is two of the A2000s that I purchased came with actually arrived with PC floppy cables, and yeah, I'll say that that's basically the way I viewed it had to be done. So let's see here. I know I am missing something. Just a moment. We're digging through stuff, looking for stuff. That is not what I'm looking for. Consulting the horde of stuff. All right, let's continue down this road. Still looking for the floppy cable that I had, and not finding it, ironically. Not finding it. So we will probably be moving forward minus said floppy cable. So we're going to have to settle for a PC floppy cable. I don't really have a choice in the matter at the moment because I can't find the other one. So we'll just make sure that we put things in the right order here. Alright, so let's give it a shot here and try to line this up as carefully as we can. You know, if I didn't know better, sometimes questions do come to light in the midst of these types of things.
I am looking pretty carefully here to try to line this up, keeping in mind I definitely don't have normal vision by any stretch of the imagination, so the pins become little wavy, blurry lines that disappear under the shadow of the connector. So we'll just take our time here, and this is where things get really boring as we try to get this lined up without damaging anything. And try to line it up and not push too hard. Make sure you're lined up. Try to be as careful as you possibly can. Try from a slightly different angle here. But take things one step at a time and try not to repeat mistakes. But anyway, well, let's see what we can do here. Try again. Try again. Make sure we got that. Make sure we get that pin lined up with the missing connector here, or the missing pin, and try to get it lined up, and hopefully not bend any pins in the process. All right, we may have success here. Let's just double check before we push everything down. And let's have a look around and see if we got everything. Have a good feel all around for the pins. And okay, there we go, floppy connector. I believe we managed to do it properly. And just for the hell of it here, just take a look up here and make sure that tell you what, the capacitors in here are bent every which direction, and I definitely, yeah, definitely. We'll put our fold in here prior to setting down the power supply. Now that I know that's connected and I feel fairly comfortable that it's secure and hopefully correct. Yeah, it looks correct. As near as I can tell. And it looks like I got everything. So didn't feel any serious resistance, so I don't think there was any issue of running into a problem with mispinning it. So let's grab the caddy. Okay, here we go. So we've got our we got our floppy and power supply bracket, and we're moving on carefully. Now I'll lift this back up and reroute that cable there, and we'll do our best to get everything lined up here. We're going to take this cable out the right side for a moment. Alright, so let's do our best to get this lined up into its place. Alright, and set this on the back here first, and then line up the front. Alrighty. Well, this is where we take our time also. And we line up the back of the we line up the back here. Hold on. Get in a better position to see. The back of this case is just a teensy bit wavy due to age, and I'm sure rough handling by some. So getting this line back up, it's not exactly easy. See here. We will get it lined up. The question is, why isn't this lining up as it should? And the answer is usually, well, Tim's stupidity is getting in the way. I'm completing his task. And it's always something to do with my stupidity. Get in my own way. Completing my task. There we go. We're definitely closer now. There we go. So, as you can see, I wouldn't call this an exact science. It sounded a lot more rough than I think it was, but we did get her in there. With some luck, yeah, we got her in that time. Alright, so it's back in. Alright, so we'll turn our focus to the motherboard connector and get this plugged back in. And by the way, I'd like to mention the fact that it's absolutely no fun to have to remove this thing when it's just plugged in. So it is not easy to pull back that plastic sometimes because it's old and brittle, and but anyway, Alright, so yeah, we're gonna have to wind up taking this thing back out again though. So let's have a look here. You got a, if you look at the power connector, there's a lip on one of the sides of the power connector, and the motherboard connector has a plastic lip on it that sticks up. If you're looking from the front, it's on the left hand side, and that lip sits down inside that other lip and holds that connector tight against that motherboard. And you push this down in there and snap that into place, and it holds it pretty tight. And it could be a real pain in the butt to get it out too. So we'll get it in here, and we'll probably wind up having to take it back out again when we put the Vampire in, but that'll be okay. It will be all right. There we go. So the power connector is on the motherboard now, and there we go. Now we turn our attention to the first test, and I can tell you from experience that hopefully I'm fairly certain. I can tell you from experience that we'll just fire it up as is and see what happens. So let's get on it, see what happens. I'll grab some power cables and we'll get on this. Alright, let's grab some power cables and we'll continue. And I do have some power cables around here. Now, in my case, I have decided to use I know I have a stack of cables around here somewhere. And I have to find them. Found one. I know I have another one here somewhere. We'll have to find it. Well, meanwhile, let's put this away. Alright, so looking for a power cable. And I just brought a stack of them. Here's one right here. Just brought a bit of four of them upstairs. Bought a couple of monitors off eBay, and supposedly these particular Dell monitors are supposed to be able to sync down to Amiga. So hopefully I'll get to test those once this is up and running. But one of them arrived dead, and of course we all know how fun that is. Let me grab a couple of things I'm going to need. One of the things that I will need is this. this is here is a this right here is SCART to HDMI. So bought a new one just for this purpose. Now of course I'm going to have to juggle all this stuff around when it comes time to actually install the operating system, but we aren't anywhere near close to it just yet. Now I do have the ability, and I put a USB port in this Amiga actually because I wanted to be able to power this device instead of having a separate plug with its own with it just not having another plug and just having it let's just make sure that works before we go any further here. Not sure what's up with that. We just got a blinky blinky. That should be solid. Run into, oh well, that's interesting. How is it? So all right. I need to find a secondary connection for this. I would say we got a bad power supply for our SCART to HDMI. That's what I'd say. Well, that stinks. So, just a moment. Bad power supply. So I have to figure out an alternative way to power the SCART to HDMI. And I do have an alternative in the form of this right here. And hopefully we'll be moving forward with this plan. All right. Plan Z. I love Plan Z. Plan Z, power it from something else and hope you don't fail. Let's have another cable over here, and that's not it. Let's see here. Aha, this would be it. So many cables everywhere. Just everywhere. Anyway, let's see if we can get this thing powered up. We use just a regular USB. These things run on 5 volts, so USB to barrel connector should do fine. Hopefully, yep. Working fine with a USB barrel connector. So, power supply issue averted, thankfully. And Now to find, we got our out of a brand new SCART. Interestingly enough, the guy that I bought the SCART cable from off of eBay sent me some gummies. So, gummies. Ooh, those were, yeah, those are pretty hard gummies. Maybe hard candy now, not gummies anymore. Alright, so we'll go over here and of course they used a tire, they didn't use a wire wrap for this. They used a zip tie to hold the cable steady, and that's a pain in the butt to have to cut off. And you don't want to cut your cable, but we succeeded. We're going to give this a go. We're almost there. All right. .23-pin connector to the Amiga. And in we go. SCART to the converter box. And of course the SCART is going to be on the back side of the converter box. That's interesting. Alright, so then HDMI from the monitor over to the converter. Alright, we should be set for a test, although it feels like it's taking forever. But it's probably not as slow as I think it is. Alright, so let's power it up for the first time. We got monitor over here. I don't think you can see the monitor very clearly. And I would definitely have to readjust the camera for that. So we will go forward as is. And, well, cross your fingers. Well, the fan's turning. That's a positive sign. Alright, let's check the input on the monitor, just to be sure. Let's, there we go. That's something. Come on. Let's see here. There we go. There is the output of the Amiga through the, and hey, it's got a 3.1 ROM on it, so can't complain about that. As you can see here, which you probably cannot. Let's see. Any way to make that possible? Not easily. Because you guys cannot see. Well, you can see the edge of the monitor, so you can actually see the edge. So. Yeah, as you can see from the edge of the monitor, it's definitely up and doing its thing. Of course, I didn't connect the floppy drive, so I did not connect the floppy drive. So here we go. Okay, so it's booting, which is good. We're almost back to where we started before we sent it off to be repaired. And so now we'll disconnect everything and pull the CPU out and put the Vampire in and hook up the floppy drive and pull out a keyboard and a mouse and see what happens. So let's turn it off. All right, back on it. Let's go ahead and disconnect the power supply. Now what I typically do, this is just me personally, and I know you guys out there probably already know what you're doing. You're laughing at me, you know, like, you know, everything, but I disconnect the power and then I flip the switch back on the power supply, just in the hopes of discharging capacitors if possible. Only because I'm the type of person that will bump into pins or, you know, you know, somehow short something out inadvertently, or, and I might as well be as careful as I possibly can. So first things first, we're going to back out what we've done in a way. Disconnected the power and the 23 pin Amiga to SCART connector, and we're getting ready to pull the power connector back off the motherboard again so that we can put the Vampire underneath. At the same time we're putting the Vampire underneath, we have to make a decision. So we'll get to that decision in a minute. Let's go ahead and pull the power connector off. If I can get enough pressure on the plastic lip to release the pressure on the connector. And I think I've gotten it. Yep, no problem. So we'll take the caddy back out. Of course, I'll have to deal with the pain in the butt of putting the caddy back in, but that will be okay. But we will do that, and we will move the caddy out of the way for the time being. All right. So we have things back open again, and we will be taking a moment to decide how we're going to route the floppy cable and bend it into shape to go back up to the bracket there. I know for a fact that this particular IC puller is just barely enough to get on that 64 pin, because right now it's just got the 68K in it. So this particular IC puller is just long enough. And I have had them slip off to pull this off, and I try to just make sure that it's relatively center on the chip before I start yanking. So we will go from there. I've had them slip off a time or two, and I do want to share. See, I do have a safe place to put the 68K. In the meantime, we'll just throw it on one of these. This is a CPU slot adapter from Kipper, so we'll just throw the 68K on the slot adapter. And I can tell you that for some reason I think the PCBs that Kipper uses for the slot adapters are a little bit thinner than what's expected in terms of what goes in the slot and makes good contact. And they're 10 contacts and not gold-plated contacts, and I think between those two things, they don't make real good contact. I didn't have a lot of luck, and without going through and either replacing the CPU slot or figuring out a way to actually retension the connectors in there, there wasn't much hope of messing with that. So it did not. It booted twice, I think, with the slot adapter in there, and it was really kind of just a hit and miss with that. So we just put the Vampire in the 68K slot for now. All right, so we're going to start yanking up on this and try to get a decent pull here and have it slip off. It did pull the chip up straight. It actually pulled the chip off before, or the chip up before it slipped off. So that's the 68K right there. We'll take it a little easy on the pins, but as you can see, or maybe you can't, but I did manage not to bend the pins on the 68K, which is good. Yeah, they're not leaning any direction, favoring any one direction. So we'll take that. I have cracked them before pulling them out, but I think everybody who does this, who's done this more than once, have probably done it. And you can see on the on the slot adapter here that there is a notch, the drawing where the notch would actually sit. So you just line up the notch and put it on here. And we'll it's just a safe place to put this for now. And these things are getting rare. These 60, I was looking online and stuff, and the dip version of the 68K is getting pretty rare. You see a lot of the PLCCs out there, but you don't see a lot of the dips for sale. And so I've got a couple of these now, and I'm tending to want to hold on to them because I have seen that they become more rare. There you go. You can see that it's back on the onto the slot adapter. So maybe I'm doing better as I go on. Anyway, so we'll start out with our Vampire here. Just to make a point, I definitely don't get any freebies, so this was full price. I mean, it was, you know, $350 American dollars. At least that was the price going in April when I bought it from. We're going to give this a shot. Now, the catch here, I think I'm going to try. I saw something in a video that I think I'm going to attempt. And I saw somebody was working on their 2000, and they actually had the power supply sitting over here alongside rather than on top, so that they had access in here. And I think I can do that. Hopefully the power cable is long enough that I can actually get it to go across here, and I can run the drive base and the power supply bay over to the right hand side and have it stretch across. That way I can work on this without having to have that in the way until I get it where I'm satisfactory. So, Vampire, right there. Hopefully you can see that. I do not have a screen in front of me, so I can't tell how lined up or not that is. And even if I did have a screen in front of me, if it was a camera screen, it would be too small, and I wouldn't be able to see what I was doing. So we'll set the box for the Vampire out of the way. I did send this off to Kipper at about a month ago, and I did buy a compact flash adapter, which he did kindly place on the board. Now I'm going to start off with that, I believe. I will start off with that, and then I do have, hopefully I'm going to be able to move on to something else. Now, here we go. This is not fun. We take the protection off of the Vampire pins and set that aside. Alright, so this sits on here this direction, and we're gonna very carefully try to line these pins up. Now, I don't know the complete layout of the 2000 board, so I'm not quite sure, and I'm not sure why I'm bringing this up at this time, but I'm not quite sure where the volatile RAM for the clock storage. So the volatile RAM for the clock storage, when you don't have a battery, that would be erased and you would lose your time. I don't know where that chip sets on the board. It's probably over in here. I'm thinking it's over here, one of these smaller. That's for this port over here. So I know this is the port for that. Well, anyway, I can look it up online later. Just curious. So let's see if we can get this lined up here. And unfortunately, you kind of have to do it blind because there is no way to see under here. The CPU slot is in the way. So you kind of have to guess and hope that you get this in here and lined up correctly and don't miss any pins, because you have no way to look under the card to see if you lined it up correctly. At least I don't. But I'm going to attempt to have a look-see double check that the pins are all, yeah, the pins are all in good shape. So keep in mind that my vision is about as poor as they get. So this is definitely an exercise in patience, because I don't have the advantage of being able just to peek at something and determine its status. Now, I can hope that that's lined up. Watching carefully. If I feel any resistance at all, I'm pulling it back off to double check. You just have to make sure we get it in the exact last pin of each row. This is not easy. Okay, so feels like it's lined up to me, but it's always the hesitation of pushing too hard. Now this is a new socket, so I imagine that the pinholes are pretty tight. So let's see, we can ascertain whether or not this is lined up correctly. It feels like it is. I just can't see. Hold on, let's grab the magnifying glass and have a peek under there. It looks lined up to me. So let's apply some even pressure and see how it goes. Yeah, it felt like it's seated to me, and it feels tight. Now, whether that's a matter of being tight because it's in the right spot or being tight because it's not is a good question. There we go. That should be properly seated. And it is indeed very tight. So hopefully, I mean, it feels like it's so hard to tell. It is so hard to tell. I'll admit, it's a little embarrassing too. Because you don't want to screw up a $300 item. You really don't. And I'm going to say that I got it in there. So what we're going to do is give it a little push here and there. I mean, it's really tight in there, so hopefully we got everything we need. We'll know in a minute. And yeah, let's see if it boots. I am going to attempt to set the drive bay off to the right. Now, I've seen this done, like I said, but I think I'm going to have to, no, I don't have to do that, but I've seen where people have gotten their power supply close enough to plug it in and keep it on the right side, and mine seems to be just a teensy bit short. It's going to be a pretty good tug on that cable to get this plugged in while sitting over there, but we'll give it a shot here and see how she goes. And hopefully I haven't misconnected that vampire, because that would be a sad day for me. Alright, so here we are, getting ready to test again. Let's give it a shot. And see what she does. There we go. 23 pin video connector, plug back in. Power supply plugged in. All right, we're ready to give it a shot. We're not going to see the vampire logo at this point because I'm just going to use the standard video output to see if it's actually booting the vampire. Hopefully I won't embarrass myself by releasing the blue smoke. We got a blue light on the vampire and a green light on the card reader. And I see booting occurring. We have a red light and a blue light on the vampire. Come on. Come on. Boot, boot, boot. I see red and blue light on the vampire. And I'm trying to remember from having installed this previously. I would imagine. Now I do remember that the vampire takes a little longer to get to the kickstart screen. So we'll see how this goes. Oh, there we go. It booted. So I did manage to get the vampire installed without breaking it, which is awesome, by the way. And we are good to go to continue. And I guess the next thing we'll have to do is I'm gonna leave the case open for now, and I'm going to leave it exposed like this while I get the operating system up and running. And hopefully I'm not putting too much tension on the motherboard power connector. So hopefully that will be fine. It's tensioned pretty tight, but I think it'll be all right for the time being. Anyway, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to grab a drink. And then I'm going to come back here and we'll see what we can do about getting something booted on here and see what we got going on. So I'm gonna take a small break. I'm gonna get a drink, and you guys, if you don't mind holding on, or you can take a break and go to the bathroom yourself, I will come back and we'll continue. But I definitely need a break. And hopefully that's not rude to do during a live stream, but hey, I'll be back in a few minutes. Let's go over here. All right, so let's get back to it. About a month and a half ago, before I took this apart and actually shipped it out to have to be repaired, I had a booting CF card. Now what I did was I took a SD to CF card adapter and went that route for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in. Now, if I remember correctly, this particular installation on this card has the Saga drivers on here already and working. So I don't have the Vampire's HDMI connected just yet, but I do want to see if this is going to boot right quick before we go any further. So we're going to power off here, and I'm going to install this card, and we'll give it a shot and see what she does. And I should be able just to slip this right in here pretty easily. Yep, that's going to be really easy. Now, Kipper was very kind in pointing me to the biblical way of doing this, which is to set the CF card reader via adapter on top of the Vampire like that and have no cable or anything between the two. And I appreciate the simplicity, and I appreciate the fact that it does work. However, I would rather not have my compact flash trapped underneath my floppy drive, to be honest, and I'm going to try again, and this will be again, to have it so that the CF card reader is towards the back of the case. And I do believe it's doable. I did purchase a buffered IDE adapter for this purpose, and I don't know whether it's going to work. Originally, the problem I had is that it would boot the system, and it would seem like everything was reading fine and working properly. But after opening a file or reading a file or writing to a file on the system, the file system would corrupt. And this was with the PFS3DS file system. So anyway, let's go ahead and boot this up, and hopefully we'll get past the corruption. Now, I am using a 128 gigabyte SD card, so it could be the adapter, it could be the SD card, it could be a combination of both, it could be the fact that I had it on a cable or whatever. We'll see what happens. I did see a little red blinky light there. Oh, by the way, the power LED is not on. Okay, so it did not boot. I might have the wrong SD card in here. So let's pull it back out and see what SD card is in here before we go any further. That's a bit of a tight fit. Let's see what we got here. This should have the 128 gig in it. Let's see here. It's teeny tiny print on these things, I'll tell you what. Yeah, that's 128 gigs, but that's not saying that this SD card adapter is any good, because I believe I might have fried one of these in the process of testing the last time. So we have a spare, and we'll get back on this and give the spare a try. Actually, worst case scenario, I'll pull out an SD card, 16 gig XD card that I have, and it's a straight CF card. I'll pull out a 16 gig CF card I have that's just a straight card, and I will test that. So let's give this another shot with a different SD card adapter and see what happens. Come on. Boot, boot. Nope, she is not going to boot from there. So I'm going to have to take the SD card out of here and attempt to figure out why it's not booting. I need to check something right quick. There we go. That's back to normal. For a minute there, the power light wasn't coming on. Alright, so there we go. Fix that. Power LED working. So, I'm going to take the SD card adapter and take the SD card out and gonna try to figure out what the deal is. And that's going to be a process. So, let's move over to the computer, and we'll have to fire up UAE and see what we can do. See if the SD card will boot up in UAE. I know I had it boot in UAE, no problem. So we'll go over there and have a look-see. Here we go. Just turn around here and put the card in. I'll have to set up the screen for this, but that won't take much to do that. So just a moment, and we will have the ability here to take a look at the SD card. Just a moment. So let's go over here and go back over here, and I'm going to make it so you guys can see this. Alright, so right now you guys should be able to see my desktop, hopefully. Yep, you can see my desktop. I can look over here and tell. And we'll go over here and fire up UAE. And hopefully I write it right. It's been a month or more since I've actually done this. Okay, so let's go over here and take a look. Make sure that we have what we need in place to move forward. So we have, okay, so we're going to have to close this down for a second and actually move the device from the Windows machine over here so that we are able to mounted. Here it is right here. And that'll move that over to the Linux virtual machine. And then we'll run UAE and see if it boots. Alright, let's double check. Well, actually, you know what? You can see how prepared I was for this. Let's just make sure it showed up as the right drive. It did. Good. So load UAE back up and put it up. Let's go. Now, I have no idea if this SD card is going to actually boot or not, so we will see. Now, I do see booting. I need to be sure. Yeah, it booted. However, what? Okay. So it did boot. Which is good. Yep, it booted. So, let's see. That probably means that my CF card adapters are not happy. And that's bad. So, I need to try to remember how to do what I'm going to have to do. So the SD card looks like it's booting, at least in UAE anyway. And not actual Amiga. So let's check something right quick. I don't remember if this is a fresh installation of this or not. Let's check it out. That was dumb. That was not the brightest thing I ever did. There, that'll fix it. Stop doing this for a month and forget everything you learned. Alright, so let's just go in here and make sure that's very... Okay, so the likelihood as to why this didn't boot is probably due to the fact let me take a look down in this file here and make sure that none of the stuff that I had set previously is set. I believe that I know why this is not booting on the Amiga. Let's see here. Hopefully you can at least hear me somewhat well. Yeah, this is fresh install, I want to say. It's got to be. Looks like it. It's a fresh install. So we have to adjust a few things. I don't know what Boeing bags are installed currently, and I'm going to say no Boeing bags are installed currently, just due to the simple fact that the set patch is not changed. Let me see here. I gotta remember to go. I gotta remember where to look for this stuff. It's in devs. Try to remember. It's difficult. So let's see what we have here. Amiga ROM update. Yeah, that's gonna have to be dealt with. So we will. Is it? We're gonna have to do this way. Amiga OS ROM update to Amiga OS ROM update dot back and enter. See, it's rename, not move. In Unix, it's move. In the rest of the world, it's rename. Okay, so when I'm bouncing between 3 different operating systems, well, you get the point. So we prevented the ROM update. We've actually renamed the ROM update, so it shouldn't call the ROM update, hopefully. We will reboot this and try again. So we'll turn off the machine and unmount the drive. Well, it's not really mounted anyway. Let's see something here. Hold on. Let's make sure it's not mounted. Media can't do. Okay. Let's see if it's. Wow, we can just do this. It's not mounted. I can see that clearly from that moment. Okay, so it is not mounted. So we'll remove it from the device list here. And we will go back to the Amiga and see if it boots. Just a moment here. Let me go back here and go back here and disable this. Alright. So let's take it out and go back to the Amiga and see if it boots. With any luck, it will. We'll see. So we're back over here and put the card back in. If not, we will go back and well, anyway, I know for a fact you have to disable the ROM update on that. The thing is I don't think you have to do that if you don't install the Boeing bags on OS 3.9. But I don't remember. It's been, like I said, it's been over a month ago, so give it a go. Let's see what she does. I see blinking. Come on. Nah, it doesn't look like it's gonna go. We'll see. No blinking yet. Give it a second. See what it does. Let's go check the channel in the meantime. Is it blinking and blinking? It's not blinking at all. Oh, well, we may have to restart the stream. There we go. So let's see here. It did not boot. So just, and I've been through this prior. Previously. I do have, you know what? I do have an alternative. To tell you what, the pins on this adapter are, see, that's just it. That is not going in there straight. It doesn't feel like it is anyway. Now, let's give it another try. We'll try that adapter. I do have another one down here, actually, to try. And this is as good a time as any to bring this stuff out to the light. Nope, no booty. So, but let's give it another shot here a different way. How's that sound? Since I've booted that CF card in the Amiga before, so I'm not sure why there would be a problem now. But we will give something else a try. Something that doesn't use a CF card adapter. Here is a 44 pin to IDE adapter, and here in my hand is a buffered IDE interface. So we are going to give this a shot and see if this will solve our problem. Now, the catch is that we need to figure out which side of this connector I believe the CEF card adapter is toast. That's pin 1. And they do appear to be marked. Very tiny. That's not going to help. So I'm going to say that that would be the correct direction. However, getting these on here is no picnic. Now, if you ask me, and nobody is, that's the direction that should sit. Which means this is the direction this should sit. So let's see if we can get it. Wait to see if it boots. Yep, it booted. Alright, so to the best of my ability, that is correct. That means this should be plugged into here. Alright, we can only give it a try. Just trying to make sure that, to the best of my ability, I've got this on here. Well, that's a good sign. I see a little red light. So let's see if it boots. Yep. I see green. Not the best of signs. Let's double check our connection. Yep. We may have to resort to simpler methods if all else fails. Okay, well it's still booting, which is a good sign. We're just going to take this a step at a time. We'll try putting this back on here and give it a go again and see what she does. It may not like this converter. I don't know, but we'll give it a try. If I have no problem lining these pins up. I hate this part of the job, I'll tell you that. The lining the pins up part, not fun. Because it is so hard to see under this chip. You don't want to miss any pins. I'm telling you. You really don't want to miss them. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, it's not going. So it's not going to boot with that. So we'll have to give something else a try. What you may not realize is I've been through this a couple, before, and I've had it booting with the same CF card that I'm using now, prior to sending it off to be repaired. So it may seem like I'm just blindly doing things, and I'm really not. I'm just kind of skipping over things that I had already done. So this buffered IDE interface does not seem to want to function. So, and we're not sure. Well, I guess we could make ourselves sure. All right, so moving backwards slightly. We'll put this card reader back on. Verify it works. Or doesn't. Alright, so try it again. See if it boots. Okay, still booting. And we get back to it. Put this CF card reader back on here again. Do our best to line up the pins correctly. I think that is going to be it. Hope that. Alright, try this again. Put the CF card reader on. This is kind of where I got to before. Trying to get the drives working. Feeling frustrated. Embarrassing myself. Trying to line up pins. Getting tired of lining up pins. Not being able to see under the drive to see if you got the pins lined up correctly or not. That's one of the problems. In this case, I do not have the pins. Trying to see under here to see if I've got them lined up. There we go. It's lined up now. So, back to it, I suppose. Alright, so we're back to square one. We're testing the CF card adapter that Kipper set back with the Vampire, so we'll do that. Let's check IRC out. Okay, so it is indeed booting normally, it seems. So let's see if we have any luck with the CF card again. Now, once again, I will state that I am doing my best to properly test this. Okay, it tried to read from the drive. it'll likely fail, because I just don't know after my last testing if these compact flash adapters are actually working. And it may be that they're working, they just don't work with this adapter. Although they were working with the adapter I used previously. I did have it booting. It just corrupted the drive whenever I would write to the drive for some reason. There's a little catch in the card as I'm trying to take it out. I think that card adapter is fine. I don't think this one is. I think this one's sick. I'm trying to get this to, it's got to get down behind that, it hits on the little feature connector back there a bit. Yeah, it read from that card that time. Come on. No. Same thing, which is actually kind of good. So let's try one other thing. I do own one more CF card adapter. And we'll give this one a try. One more time with a different CF card adapter. How's that sound? I have a ton of these little things around because I use the CF cards in a lot of other computers. The other 2000 that I have actually has it has a SCSI to SD in it. Because I'm not rich enough to own 2 vampires, so let's give it a shot, see what she does. It does not appear that this is going to work. So we might just have to move on to plan B somewhere. Is it plan Z of some kind? Just for shits and giggles here, let's pull out another different SD card adapter here, and this is really the last thing that I can possibly try at this point before reverting to more drastic measures that require more work. If I ever do manage to get this working, I would be very happy. But at this rate, I am not smiling. It's a bit frustrating. Just a bit frustrating. There's no reason why this SD card adapter should not work. So take a look here, trying to read. Okay, so far no boot. Okay, so that did not function as expected. Running out of things to try. Did not work. So, what is next is the question. Well, I had given thought to trying this adapter board again, but why they send boards out that don't have the pins marked is beyond me, because I certainly don't see a marking for pin 1. Let me check something right quick. Let's go over here and take a look at some potential reference material. Let's see if we can figure out this. Let's see if we can figure out which way the pin 1 is on that adapter actually. Let's see if anybody's still watching the stream. You still got watchers? We still have at least 3. Let's see what time it's getting to be. Okay. It feels later than it is. So let's take a look and see if we can we can discover. If we can try to discover which, here it is, which way this is supposed to go on here. Alrighty then. Huh, that's funny. They show it with the exact same setup. Okay, so I did indeed have it upside down. So let's try this again. Let's try this again. And yes, I know I had a horrible time getting that on there correctly, and I'll probably have to do it again. But we are going to try this one more time and get it right. That should go face up. This should go this way, and this should go this way. So we put this on just like so. Now I am looking at a picture that shows this item installed and in operation. So I am making a determination based on what I see in that photo as to which way is the correct way to seat this thing, and hopefully with any luck at all I will do it correctly and this will work. Now I am trying to examine the connector to make sure that I got this in here correctly. And that's very difficult because I can't see under the connector. But it looks like it's sitting correct to me. I do see a red light. Let's see what it does. Come on. Aha. And we have Workbench, as you can all plainly see on the screen. It is Workbench, and I did get it to boot. So this combination right here works. What I have on the top of the Vampire in the IDE connection, the IDE header, is a buffered IDE connector for an Amiga 600. It's sold on eBay for the Amiga 600, and if anybody's interested, I can in the channel post where I purchased it, and it's not very expensive. We're talking $26, I think, is what I paid for it. And it does work on the Vampire. And I also have, in addition to that, I have in addition to that, I have a SD card to IDE adapter. And that combination is functioning very well. So, we're to a point in which I have to answer some questions. As mentioned previously, I'd rather not have to deal with I'd rather not have to deal with trying to open the case and deal with opening the case to get to my vampire and to my SD card every single time. So I do have a plan for dealing with that situation. However, now that I'm to the point where I know this boots, which is awesome, because I'm to a point where I can start putting some other things back together, which is just absolutely tremendously awesome. So set that aside, and I do have it booting, as you can see. Let's see here. Double check this here. Oh yeah, I was looking at the stream. It's quite a bit behind. So we're going to make some decisions about what we're doing going forward. I don't know if I want it. Well, it's only 9:30, so I'm definitely willing to work on it some more. But this is becoming a very long stream. All right, so I really appreciate the people that are still watching. I know this can't be very exciting for you, so I really appreciate that. I look at things closer because I don't see well. I do have a fairly serious vision problem due to albinism, and I work with what I got. So it's going to look a little weird when I get close and I look at things kind of strangely, but I guess if I'm going to do this for any period of time on YouTube, I've got to get used to people asking questions, and I've got to get used to answering them, which is not a problem. It's just that I have to, I have to hold things certain ways sometimes to be able to see them clearly. So the fact, I mean, I've been working with computers for a very, very, very long time. So I'm used to the way I have to do things, although it may look strange. But anyway, we got it booting. It's all good. I'm very excited. Looks nice. What I am going to do is hopefully I'm able to, hopefully I'm still able to set the, I'm a little concerned that I won't be able to set the, I won't be able to set the caddy on because of this connector here. And I'm concerned that it's not going to fit. So it'll be sad if it doesn't. I've got, well, I really can't even. I've got a 20 centimeter extension cable that I can use. But yeah, I'd rather not use that unless I had to, because it's not going to put that in the best position. So But there is an advantage here. Not only does this adapter from eBay for the IDE that adapts it to the buffer IDE, it also has a connector for a 40 pin as well as a 44 pin IDE on it, so I can actually connect a CD-ROM off of that if I want to, which is just awesome in a lot of ways. So that's a good thing. So there's probably a CD-ROM in this computer's future. So that's all good. So let's continue on. Yeah. Onward. We've got you know, we've got it booting. So next step. So let me grab a drink and put this off for a minute. I do have to test to see that this is going to actually sit in here correctly, because I am concerned that I won't be able to set the it's gonna, let's try booting one more time. We're going to try booting up one more time. And there it goes. Very quickly, I might add. And I don't have a mouse or anything plugged in, so. Alright. Up next. Okay. All right, so moving forward, let's see if the caddy is going to hit this. So we're going to unplug this. We're going to unplug all the electrical things here. And we're going to see how the caddy fits into this. Oh, wow. Did it grab? It did grab. That's hilarious. Okay, so let's see how this works out. For right now, once again, we're going to kind of ignore the floppy cable a little bit, because that kind of is going to be the last thing that I connect after I get everything else in here. And I'm sure that it's working. But let's see how bad this is going to impact the situation. I'm having a little trouble seeing under here, and I don't want to damage anything. Come on now. Get out. Okay, so let's see how this is going to sit. We're going to try to okay, so that is, oh wow, that's well, that's good news, I guess. It's going to Yeah, it sets on it. So that's what I feared would happen. So we're going to have to do a little more testing before we can actually call it quits on this. So just a little more testing, because we're going to have to try and we're going to have to extend this out over to here in order to prevent it from to prevent the drive bay from sitting on it. Now pin 1 on, see, that's kind of the problem. That is kind of the problem. So we are going to make an adjustment, and I need to find the part I'm going to use to make that adjustment. That's funny. So I did also buy a SD card slot right here, as a matter of fact. But moving on. Alright, so here's the situation as it stands. We need to make a change. Did I buy 2 of these? I most certainly did. That's funny. Bought 2 of those. Anyway, making some adjustments. I need to find the other piece that I had, and it's around here. Here it is. I found it, and this is the only way this is going to work. So basically, we're going to place this on this cable, and pin 1 is there. Pin 1 is there. That means pin 1 is here. Yep. Okay. So pin 1 is there, and pin 1 is here. So this would go like this. Wait a minute. Not necessary. It is necessary. Never mind. So it sits like that. So we're having to make a little adapter here to make this work correctly. And it's a bit tedious. So if that's pin 1 there, and it's this sits here. Keeping in mind where all the pins go. Not exactly what I would call fun. So let's see if we can get this on here correctly. That goes, ooh, that was not good. That goes on here like this, making this pin 1, making this pin 1. This should work. I'm hoping. Let's get the pins in. There we go. And just double check that we got everything in there. And yep, that should work. And get this cable on here. Now I have to extend it out because the drive bay hits the connector. The good news is it should be a little easier to see if I'm hitting pins here. Okay, that's not missing any pins or hitting any pins. Let's see if there's any pins over here that are visible, and there is not. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this boots. Let's plug in the power. That will certainly help. Let's plug in the power and we'll retest this. All right. Yep, it looks correct so far. Let's see what she does. I believe she's going to boot with the extension cable on. Yep, it booted, no problem. So we're good to go there. All right, we are in the pink. We are in the pink. So we're to the point where we have the IDE working, and we are to the point that we are ready to install we're ready to install the HDMI port and run the cabling underneath the drive for the HDMI port, and we should be in business there. And we're good to go with the IDE. This is definitely going to function the way it should, and we can move forward from here on that. So it's a little it's a little less glamorous than I prefer, honestly, but There's not a whole lot you could do about that. It is what it is. Now the decision I do have to make that I think is important. I honestly don't need to have this buffered adapter in here with the 40-pin IDE off of it. I'm up in the air on whether or not I bother putting a CD-ROM in here. Part of me says I would. Part of me says I wouldn't. But it's a pain in the butt, as you can see, getting in here and doing all of this. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, for now, let's get the HDMI port installed, and we'll move forward from there, and we'll see what happens. So next thing up, HDMI port. Now this is kind of interesting. I did something in order to give myself an HDMI port, something that I felt was unique. It took a little bit of research, but we got it, and it works. So here's the HDMI port I use, and what I got was I got a dual USB bracket from Amazon, and I took one of the USB ports off, and I also bought an HDMI port from Amazon, and I can list these. I can give these out if anybody wants them, and put the HDMI port in place of the USB that was here. So there's a USB here and an HDMI here. Now the cool thing about that is that I added to the USB one that's still here, I added a power connector. And the cool thing about this power connector is it allows me to power something that requires USB power, or 5 volts, and also have the HDMI port. So that was a little stroke of genius on my part. But we'll put this bracket in the back of the case here, and that will give us the HDMI port. And this part of the situation, this part actually does work quite well. So we will put the bracket in, and we will find our bucket of screws and find us a screw to put this in with. And I'm going to say, let's find an appropriate screw, and we'll put our HDMI port in. Now we'll try. Uh-oh. Drop the screw. So we have to kind of look down through here and see where we dropped it. Drop the screw. It's always fun when you drop a screw, and it's my luck that I would do so. Just drop a screw. So move the bracket out of the way, get our magnetic screwdriver, and start looking for said screw. Now I know it's here. Screw, where are you? I know I dropped you. This is where having bad vision really doesn't help, because I dropped the screw on here and I don't see it. Where did you go, screw? Well, that sucks, because in order to find this screw, I may have to turn the whole thing upside down. And that really stinks, because I don't right off the bat see that screw. Well, my luck. Let's keep going. Where did you fall, Mr. Screw? Screw, where are you? I hope it didn't fall down in there anywhere. I heard it. Did it happen to fall outside of the case? Screw. Didn't fall that far back up. I can't just leave you in here. Well, that's a bummer. I have to find that screw. Let me get that link right quick. I'm sorry about the delay on getting that. I didn't look at the screen right away, but I eventually got to find that screw. Let me get the name of it here. Let's check it out here. Let's see if we can find the link for that. Okay, it's dual port IDE adapter. Dual port IDE adapter. There it is. Alright, so I've got to find this screw. And back on it. Cannot waste time. Must find the screw. So we're going to delicately move our fingers in and out of here. And I just don't see where I dropped it. I really don't. Just don't see where I dropped it. I hope it didn't fall down underneath by the motherboard, but I don't see how that would be possible, to be honest. I really don't see that screw. I really don't. I have no idea where it went. So let's unplug the power supply and move that out of the way. Set the caddy aside for a minute. And we'll bring that back into the picture in a minute. I need to get this screw out of here. And the only way that I can see to do that at this point is to turn this upside down. There it is. Found it. Always the hard way, never the easy way. I was really hoping I'd see that and not have to do what I did. But, yeah, such is life, I suppose. Such is life. For me, anyway. Never the easy way. Never the easy way. So, let's start off by connecting to, try not to drop the screw this time. Yeah, that's the right screw. Just double checking. So here's our USB USB HDMI port connector. Here's the screw, and you'll please pardon my head, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, but I promise you I'm putting in the port for now we have to go around the back because this is a little fidgety since it's just a blank plate connected here. And what basically happens is you have to manually line up the openings so that you have access to the with any luck I could get that behind there, I hope. There we go. Now, is that the right screw? I'm gonna have to say nope. I accidentally picked up the wrong screw. Happens. 50 million screws in a little doohickey. This sort of thing does occur, and I will have to pick up a different screw for this purpose. Wait a minute, hold on. Is this just a really long screw? Or is it not tightening? Are you tightening or not? It is not tightening, so taking the screw back out. Such is life. Wrong screw. Take the wrong screw out. Hopefully put the right screw in. We need a different screw. Bending over is not so fun sometimes. Sometimes I feel really, really old. Sometimes I feel really old. Let's see here. Now I'm trying to determine if these little screws have a little washer on them. And it's my personal belief that they do. However, yeah, these are little screws with a little washer on the top. Let's see if this is correct screw for this purpose. Yes, it is. This is the correct screw for this purpose. Now, if I could do this without killing my back, that'd be great. We will see how it goes. But leaning over is exhausting to the back. and lining up these screws is a little work. Normally I do these slightly differently because they have the card to hold the, because there's a card connected to it, it tends to hold it steady. When it comes to doing just a regular plate with connectors on it, it becomes a different level of involvement because of the fact that you're having to line the plate up manually. You don't have a card in a slot to do that for you. That looks pretty good. So that is the HDMI port and the USB port that I created, installed. Now I just connected a Molex connector from an old fan onto the 5-volt rail of right off the power supply. So it's just a standard Molex, and that just provides power. The USB doesn't do anything other than that. So that's just strictly for power purposes. So let's see here. Yep, there should be. So moving on. We will go ahead and connect the HDMI to the Vampire underneath the board here, underneath all the floppy, and power supply bay. Make sure we got the pins lined up correctly. Alright, let's go ahead and plug that in. Okay, HDMI is officially connected, so that's good to go. We got a proper connector for that and everything, so we're good to go there. That's all done. So that gives us the HDMI. Now, and I have to admit that this is getting long, very long. Now I do wonder what the jumper, I bet you I do know what that jumper is on there. That jumper right there is likely, and I think I will probably verify that shortly, but alright, so the HDMI is plugged in. We'll come back to that subject of that jumper. And this IDE adapter bit is plugged in. Now, the next stage of what I need to decide. I purchased a SD-NET to go in here. And the SD card for the Vampire is up here on this corner, while the back of the case is where you would want a network card connection. So I need to come up with a method that will allow me to run the SD-NET to the back of the case. So In fact, there's not just that I have to deal with. I also need to have the dongle for the flashing of the vampire that needs to come out of the back of the case as well. So, I'm not sure that I'm ready to go that far yet. I guess there isn't really a whole lot of choice. So anyway, what I've chosen to do to make this possible is I bought some adapters. For the purpose of allowing me to run the vampire's connections to the rear of the case. However, I do not see the one adapter that I purchased that I need. This here is an SD-NET. That's what it looks like. So SD-NET gets plugged into the front side of the vampire, and will wind up hanging out the back of the case, apparently, for the purposes of allowing me to connect that externally so I can put the network cable on there. But for now, we're going to examine this. Yeah, that's the same as this. So these two are the same. Alright. That's the same as that. I have the feeling I'm missing something. Now, I'm one of these people. I always buy two of everything, because I never know when I'm going to do something stupid and break it. So, aha, this is one thing I was looking for. Ugh. Okay, here we go. This is one thing I was looking for. This is the so this here gets plugged into the vampire, and I'm assuming that it goes in this way. Plug in. There we go. It's in. And this one here can go out the back of the case. Let's do this appropriately in some meaningful fashion. Okay, so that right there is That's the SD card for that. Just to make sure that that's in the Vampire's connection. I do see the piece sticking out, and I do recognize that the connector is probably just a little longer than need be. Next, we'll put in the second connector. Now that one's installed. Yep, that should lay flat just fine. Okay, this is not pretty. I'm going to say that. This is not pretty. How all this has to fit in here. And I'll go back and label these a bit later, but we'll put in this next one. If nobody's tuning in, I can turn off the stream. Let's see, if nobody's watching, I can definitely turn this stream off and continue on my own. Let's see here. I don't want that. I want this. Yeah, it says there's 3 people watching, and I'm one of those 3, so. Anyway, onward for the time being. Another connector to the back of the case. And this one here goes in thusly. Like that. I'm going to have to rig something up to prevent that from happening, but for now, this doesn't even need to go in, truthfully. Truthfully, that can wait. Okay, so let's see here. Well, yeah, there's no reason that couldn't work that way. Just have them come out there. But we'll deal with that when the time comes. I think I'd rather have it out here. Okay, next thing. Next order of business. Oh, yes, next order of business. USB blaster for the flashy. So this is the device that you purchase in order to flash your Vampire. Should there be any problems. And my plan is to have to open up this case as little as possible, which includes doing my best to ensure that I do not have to open this case unless it's absolutely necessary. So let me grab these scissors and continue. And we will install the USB blaster. Which, unsurprisingly, comes in several parts. So, here's what you have. You have the USB blaster portion, which is this portion, and it's called USB blaster. It's for Altera. So, and we definitely have a port on our Vampire for the connection of an Altera USB blaster. It exists right there. There's no way to accidentally connect that backwards because they are keyed. So, we will run the USB blaster out the back of the case. And the other end of the blaster cable, actually, and I bought two blasters. It's just a USB cable for the blaster itself. So, USB blaster cable right there. So, we got our USB blaster. Should we ever have to fiddle fart with flashing the Vampire, which could happen. And yeah, we'll go from there. I do really like these SD card extenders. I think they're great. I have used them. They are handy. They do work. Alright, so we've got SD, that, we got our floppy cable, we got our USB blaster coming out the side. Let's just give this a fold like that. There we go. Just a little fold just like that to make it just slightly neater. And I say slightly, very loosely. So we'll get our bracket, we'll run our floppy cable up through the center of the bracket, and we'll set this down. And then we'll move on to the next phase. Next phase. Okay, we're just about ready to move on to the next phase. Alright, so we'll get our bracket, run our cable through like this, and get that going, and put our bracket in, and we should be good. Let's run our cable up to the center of the bracket. Brackets to sit properly, which is not easily done. go. Went a little easier the second time, thankfully. But I think we're in good shape. All right, so we got our cables running here. With any luck, there we go. That's out of the way. This is our cable for that. That's our cable for that. With any luck at all, she will still boot. So here's mud in your eye, I guess. Let's get the SD card, because this is sitting on the bracket now. Yeah, it's on there. Ready to be screwed down, technically. Let's put the SD card back in here. I am not connecting the floppy drive just yet, because I do not know if this is going to boot at the current moment. Let's hook the power connector to the motherboard back up. Now remember putting this together the last time. And having problems with the case cover catching wires. Okay, that's the motherboard connector, power connector back on. And plug the power in and see how she goes. It looks like it's booting to me, or it looks like it's going to boot. That's going to try. Come on. Boot. Alright, she booted. Quickly too. Okay, second phase testing. Second part of testing here. We will put the SD card into the slot. We will plug the SD card. The SD card extender, by the way, right here. You know what? I just had a realization. I hope that's fact. Because I believe I can just flip the floppy cable around and plug it in. That'd be cool. That'd be great if that's how that worked. If I could just flip it around and plug it in. Alright, so SD card in the SD card slot. Need to quit getting distracted. Extender plugged in. We're going to test the extender and make sure it still boots. Yep, still boots. Awesome. Alright. So, several things need to occur. One of the things that needs to happen. Oh, that's neat. One of the things that needs to happen. We'll take that off. Is our USB plug needs to get inserted into here. And that can go under here. So that can sit there. Okay, that's installed. Now we can hook up this floppy connector, and I'm hoping, which way is pin 1? That be the question, don't it? Which way is pin 1? Well, we're going to take a risk here, and hope we not miss any pins. This thing's a pain in the butt to connect this Gotek because the second row of pins sits just under the it's upside down. It be upside down. So run this out of this port, making sure that that goes there. And I'll work out a system of double-sided tape to actually attach that and that. But we'll have to have some double-sided tape around here and actually attach those. So this is upside down. So this needs to go Well, yep, that would be correct. So in order to make this work, we would have to bend this in a very specific manner. Oh, you can do it. You can reach for the stars, hopefully. Let's see if we can get this on here. It's a tight squeeze with the power cable in the way, but we will do our best. Had to do this in the other case too, if I remember, because I missed a whole row of pins, because the adapter missed the okay, so it is booting. I do believe I have the floppy drive connected correctly. We'll have to double check that. It's a Gotek, so it's hard to say. Actually, it appears to be working. Yes, it is indeed working. So the floppy drive is working. I'm very happy to say. So, problem solved. That is an issue solved. So we're booting, the floppy's working. We're definitely making progress. I feel good about this progress. That does not mean I won't screw it up. It just means it's working for now. So next thing we have to test is we have to get Workbench up and running properly and with all the drivers installed. and make sure that the file system is not being corrupted. So we are not going to hammer down any connections until I do want to know an answer to a question. I do believe that this jumper right here is, let's see if this is correct. I'm hoping that I'm right about this connector. Now, I should not do any damage. Oh, interesting. Holy smoke. Really? Freaking awesome. All right, that is cool beans right there. I'm just gonna say that. That jumper enables the second port on this buffered adapter connector, and allows you to choose where to boot from, port 1 or port 2. That is awesome. That is truly awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what that's for. It lets you choose, that jumper lets you choose which port you boot from. So you could put a CD-ROM in here and just choose to boot from it right away. I mean, that is truly cool. All right, so let's make sure there's still boots. Why is it still saying port 1, port 2? That's not right. Come on, jumper. Get on there. It's a little tight spot to get the jumper in. And I missed the pin. No damage, just missed that pin. No, it missed. That's odd. It's asking me for port 1 or port 2. And it's a little strange that it's asking me that all of a sudden. Let's see if we can get this to cooperate properly.